In 1962, NASA destroyed an $80 million rocket because of a missing hyphen. One hyphen. $80 million. The maths are not good. Today's story involves the Mariner 1 spacecraft, a guidance computer the size of a refrigerator and the single most expensive punctuation mark in the history of human civilization. It involves a rocket that was supposed to go to Venus. It did not go to Venus. It went into the Atlantic Ocean. The year is 1962. The space race is at its peak. America and the Soviet Union are competing furiously to be the first to explore the solar system. NASA announces an ambitious mission. Mariner 1, the first American spacecraft to fly past another planet. The target? Venus. The plan? Launch from Cape Canaveral, travel 180 million miles, fly past Venus, collect scientific data, transmit it back to Earth. It would be humanity's first interplanetary mission. The rocket is ready. The spacecraft is ready. The guidance software is ready. The guidance software has a typo. This is where Gene comes in. Gene, and we are calling him Gene because the actual programmer has never been publicly identified, which is either very kind or very telling, was one of the engineers responsible for translating the rocket's guidance equations into computer code. The guidance equations were written by hand first, as mathematical formulae on paper. They then had to be typed into the computer manually. At some point in this process, a single hyphen was omitted. Not a word, not a line. One hyphen. The kind you barely notice when you're proofreading at 2 in the morning before a rocket launch. On July 22, 1962, Mariner 1 launches from Cape Canaveral. For the first 4 minutes and 53 seconds, everything works perfectly. The rocket climbs. The trajectory looks correct. Mission controllers are watching their screens. Then the guidance system, operating on its flawed software, begins receiving corrupted data from the ground tracking antenna. The computer, following its instructions precisely and incorrectly, decides the rocket needs to correct its course. It does not need to correct its course. It is on the correct course. But the computer does not know this, because of the hyphen. The rocket begins to veer off trajectory. Mission controllers watch in horror as Mariner 1 starts heading not toward Venus, but toward the North Atlantic shipping lanes, where, if it continued, it could potentially come down on a populated area. Before we see $80 million go up in smoke, if you love these disaster stories, join the canvas by subscribing. 5 minutes and 3 seconds after launch, the range safety officer presses the destruct button. $80 million into the ocean because of a hyphen. The subsequent investigation identified the missing hyphen almost immediately. It was, as these things tend to be, blindingly obvious in retrospect. The author, Arthur C. Clarke, upon hearing about the incident, called the missing hyphen the most expensive hyphen in history. He was not wrong. He was also being generous. Some historians argue it was actually a missing overbar, a line written above a symbol in the handwritten equations that did not make it into the typed code. The distinction matters only in the sense that it makes the story slightly worse. It was not even a hyphen. It was part of a symbol that nobody typed correctly into an $80 million rocket. Mariner 1's failure delayed the American Venus program by several months. The Soviets, who had already launched their own Venus probe, were briefly ahead. NASA regrouped. Mariner 2 launched 5 weeks later. It worked perfectly. It flew past Venus in December 1962 and became the first spacecraft to successfully conduct a planetary flyby in history. All because someone, this time, remembered the hyphen. Gene, wherever he is, presumably proofreads very carefully now. Every programmer who has ever shipped code with a typo and broken something important can look at the Mariner 1 incident and feel, briefly, a little better about themselves. You did not cost $80 million. Probably. This is the Crude canvas. If you want to see what happens when a medieval knight answers the door to a package from Amazon, hit subscribe and we will see you on the next canvas.